here, and I am just making sure that we are actually live. Hey, everybody, my name is Sean Q. Let me know if you can see me, if you can hear me. I am going live to have a conversation around some of the real dangers and case studies and uses of AI. And okay, let's see, I want to make sure that I'm live. All right, this is processing. Okay, cool. I am the typical optimist. And if you know anything about me, I tend to look at opportunities and the world through the lens of positivity, through the lens of abundance. And I look at the world and I see opportunity for us to get better, for us to improve. And so when artificial intelligence, was first introduced to the public in November of last year, it was on a mass scale, I should say. It was phenomenal because now other people were able to get access to some of these incredible tools. I've been using AI for about 19 months, thanks to the masterminds that I've been a part of that have introduced us to some of these platforms like Jasper and Repurpose and other things like that. And what I really want to emphasize is that I think there's a difference between toxic positivity and being an informed optimist. Toxic positivity ignores red flags. It's just positive and just looks at the world through this kind of rosy lens that there's nothing wrong. And I think that there is a opportunity for us to be an informed optimist, where we are informed about the real dangers of the world. We're communicating them to our audience, and we are letting people in on these red flags while remaining an optimist that these things are going to actually help us do better in the world. I want to share a couple of different things with you today, specifically three things. Number one, a historical context of where we find ourselves today. OpenAI has had the quickest growing user base growth in the history of the world. What took Facebook 4.5 years to reach 100 million users, it took OpenAI 2 months. 2 months. Yet AI has actually been around for about 60 years. Wild, right? So I want to give you a little bit of a historical context of where we're at today. Number two, I want to show you some AI use cases that genuinely concern me and concern the engineers, the builders, the creators that are behind these platforms. And number three, I want to share with you a couple of principles that we use in our business and our life to determine how we talk about and how we use AI platforms in business and life. This helps us determine which AI platforms to use and which ones to let go of, which ones not to use, and how to show up to them. And so, what I believe is that an informed user, somebody who has all the information available to them, is somebody who can make better, wiser, stronger decisions for themselves and their families. And so, in no way do I want to say the sky is falling. Well, what I do want to say is that there are some real dangers to AI that you have to be informed about because things are speeding up at such a rapid and accelerated pace. And it when I discovered some of these things, it blew my mind because it's beyond chatbots. It's beyond like being able to put something in ChatGPT and have something put out. It's way beyond Mid-Journey and being able to create some really cool images. The things that are happening in the AI space are wild, and I want to share some of those with you today. So, I'm going to share my screen. And let me know if you can see my screen. Okay. Number one, I want to go over the historical context of where we find ourselves today with AI. Number two, I want to go over AI case uses that genuinely concern me and the engineers, creators behind, builders behind these AI language models. And number three, I want to share with you the three safe and ethical principles we use to determine how we talk about and use AI platforms. So let's talk about the history of AI. In 1950, Alan Turing proposed the Turing test. Essentially, it was originally called the imitation test or the imitation game, and it's a test that it tests the machine's ability to exhibit intelligent behavior equal to or indistinguishable from a human. In other words, someone cannot tell whether or not this is human. Is it AI or is it human? We don't know. Alan Turing proposed the Turing test. The same year, Isaac Asimov introduced the three laws of robotics. The first law is that a robot shall not harm a human or by inaction cause a human to come to harm. The second law is that a robot shall obey any instruction given to it by a human. And the third law is that a robot shall avoid actions or situations that could cause it to come to harm itself. Now, these are three laws of robotics that guided how we build robotics, how we build artificial intelligence. In 1951, the first AI-based program was built or was written, and in 1955, the first self-learning game-playing program was written by Arthur Samuel. It was a checkers game, and this computer was able to determine or able to play and learn how to get better at playing checkers. AI has been around since the 50s, y'all. When Samuel disproved, what he disproved with his invention is the notion that computers had to be explicitly programmed in order to perform a task. Samuel's work on the checkers program continued until the 1970s, by which time he was able to beat players of a good amateur level. In other words, what he proved was that a computer didn't have to just be programmed to do one thing, that it could learn on its own and improve on its own. In 1959, the MIT AI lab was established, and in 1961, GM introduced robotics into its assembly line, right? This is a picture of this robot serving coffee way back when. It was called Unimate, and it was the first industrial robot. The patent for this robot said the present invitation relates to the automatic operation of machinery, particularly in the handling apparatus, et cetera, et cetera. So, in other words, that this machine can work on its own. We don't need a human to be behind it. In 1965, ELIZA, the first chatbot, was invented at MIT by Joseph Weizenbach. The first chatbot existed in 1965. ELIZA, and it was specifically designed to mock a psychotherapist. If you look at the conversation here, ELIZA says, "Is something troubling you?" The person says, "Men are all alike." ELIZA says, "What is the connection, do you suppose? They're always bugging us about something. Can you think of a specific example?" "Well, my boyfriend made me come here." "Is it important to you that your boyfriend made you come here?" He says, "I'm depressed," et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this first chatbot existed in 1965. Then in 1974, the first autonomous vehicle was invented at Stanford, I should say Stanford, AI lab. Okay, it was the very first autonomous vehicle. We think that Teslas were like the very first one. No, it was invented at Stanford AI labs in 1974. Then nothing happens for about 20 years. There's this incremental progress, but essentially the computers weren't fast enough or advanced enough, and the data set wasn't large enough. In other words, the technology wasn't advanced enough to do the things we really wanted it to do. So money started to funnel out of the industry, and it was just kind of a very incremental progress. But then in 1997, IBM's Deep Blue AI beat a grandmaster chess player called Garry Kasparov. And this blew the industry out of the water, because it was in 1997 where people began to identify, oh, maybe this is a thing. And what happened was it was intelligent enough to beat and play a real human. In 1999, MIT AI Lab introduced the first emotional AI. This was an AI that was able to replicate different emotions. It was called Kismet, and it was a robot head made in the 1990s as an experiment in what's called affective computing. In other words, emotional computing, a machine that can recognize and simulate emotions. In 2009, Facebook introduces its newsfeed algorithm. Now, this was pivotal. This was a massively pivotal moment in the AI space because this was the first time an AI was introduced to the public on a mass level for the purposes of curation. If you're taking notes, put that in the chat. Curation, because this is a point that I really need you to hold on to. I'm going to come back to this word, curation. 2009, it was time for Facebook launched its newsfeed filters. In other words, the Facebook algorithm was born in 2009 when it decided to set the reverse chronological newsfeed. This meant that posts with higher engagement would show up first. So no longer was it going to just show you content based off of when somebody posted. It was shifting from timeline-based curation to engagement-based curation. In other words, the higher something was engaged with, the more people would see it. Why? Because engagement was proof that that piece of content would keep people on the platform. And so it leveraged what's called maximized engagement. We're going to come back to that point in a second because that's super key to recognize with where we're at today. 2011, Siri, Google Now, and Cortana became mainstream. We have been living with AI literally in our pockets forever. We could literally ask it, hey, AI, can you do this thing? Can you remind me to do this thing? Can you set an alarm? And it's become mainstream. Then in 2015, Elon Musk and others announced a $1 billion donation to OpenAI, a nonprofit. In 2019, Elon attempted to take over OpenAI and eventually left, leaving room for Microsoft to come in with another $1 billion of funding and turn it into a for-profit company. So if you didn't know, OpenAI, the company that introduced ChatGPT, was a nonprofit. Sam Altman, the founder, one of his biggest missions was to introduce AI to the public based off of an interview he did. It was like a 2-hour interview. Based off an interview he did, that the goal was to introduce people to this massive AI kind of a tool, this kind of new technological revolution, so people could get comfortable with it because he saw what was coming. Several technological luminaries are announcing today they have committed $1 billion to funding. Elon Musk ended up only giving about $100 million, not $1 billion, and he ended up leaving in about 2018, 2019. Initially, only a few companies had access to ChatGPT 3. Other AI companies began to pop up, and in November 2022, last year, OpenAI makes GPT 3.5 and 3 available to the public through ChatGPT. This is what everyone has, this is kind of the breaking point, right? Where it becomes massively introduced to the public, where people can then use these AIs. Here's essentially how AI works. Data gets put into an AI system, right? These supercomputers, these super algorithms, these neural networks that then creates an output. The bigger the data set and the stronger the AI, the more precise the output. Have you ever used something like ChatGPT and you're like, well, that's pretty generic, right? Well, the more information you give it, the better the output's going to be. OpenAI has done something called, I believe it's the Whisperer Project. And what they initially did was they put all of the internet's written content through the AI, and kind of that was the data set that it leveraged. Then they started to introduce speech to text data. In other words, YouTube, podcast, radio, all of that was spoken could now become text, and then that data could be introduced to AI. So in other words, the data set continued to grow and grow, and it's continuing to grow on an exponential rate. And so AI is getting stronger, the data set is getting larger, so it can put a more precise output out. Now, here's what's wild. Engineers are discovering emergent properties they cannot explain. What I mean by this is they're putting in English, for example, into the AI, It's a really like simplified explanation of this, but they're putting English data sets and eventually it's able to spit out Spanish output or Portuguese or German. AI is exponentially accelerating its ability to learn. In other words, it's making itself stronger. And the engineers at the top, highest level who are behind these platforms cannot explain why. In other words, it's accelerating so fast, the technology to identify why hasn't caught up. AI experts predicted it would take 4 years for AI to solve competition level mathematics. It took literally less than 1 year because of how accelerated this is going. AI is essentially beating tests as fast as they are being made. Tracking progress is getting increasingly hard because progress is accelerating. Jack Clark said that, former policy director of OpenAI. Now, here's what I really want you to take away from this is AI is getting stronger. AI is able to put out is learning more and creating greater output. And what has happened is we have moved from curation to creation. Curation AI was everyone has a voice. You can connect with people. We'll build like-minded communities. We'll be able to connect with your customers, right? This was all social media. In other words, we were creating content with humans were creating content, but that was being curated by an AI to get in front of the right people. And now everyone has a voice. It has democratized platforms. Anyone can say anything at any point on these social platforms. But we have to recognize that even though there are really good things about about being on the internet and having access to the web, right? I run an internet-based business, an online business. There are really good things that have come from the internet. We also have to recognize some of the things that are really harmful to society, like information overload, screen addiction, distraction, doom scrolling, influencer culture, QAnon, and other cult like industries, predator platforms where people are able to leverage these. Everyone has a voice, including predators. Shortened attention spans, polarization. We are more polarized than we have ever been before because we are more segmented by data sets on social platforms. Cult factories, fake news, literally the breakdown of democracy. If we go back to 2016 at the Cambridge Analytica fiasco, privacy and data was being leveraged and used in ways that were absolutely illegal. And so, even though we have some really positive things that have come from the internet, there are some really harmful things that have come from the internet as well in the curation phase. Why? Because curation has been a race to the core emotional stems of our brains. We have recognized that emotional content gets the most engagement. That's its goal. Remember, curation's goal was to maximize engagement. So, what we're seeing on our news feed is an echo chamber. It is all the things that the algorithm thinks we'll engage with, agree with, and have conversation with. And so we are not getting an informed feed, we're getting a curated feed that will maximize engagement. These are battles we're still counteracting. We're still counteracting cyberbullying. We're still counteracting predator platforms. We're still counteracting cult-like factories and communities. We're still I mean, these are things we're still trying to deal with. Just recently, over the last maybe 3, 4, 5 years, has there been legislation passed on the government side that has reined in some of these things? But these are things we're still counteracting. So to add to these things, we now have to look at creation AI, right? We're going to be so efficient. If you're looking at anybody marketing anything with AI, you're going to be so efficient. You're going to be able to write faster, code faster. There's going to be impossible scientific challenges that are solved, including climate change. We're going to make lots of money. There are really positive things that can come from AI, and I no doubt will come from AI. Right now, I'll give you a couple of examples. Right now, an AI has designed a plastic eating bacteria. And so, what's possible with this idea is that it's able to be released in the ocean where there are loads of plastic. So, it'll be able to clean up our environment. There is a cellular level, sized level AI that can be injected into your body and detect cancerous cells and eliminate them without chemotherapy. So there are some incredible advances in the medical space, in the um, uh, um, uh, uh, societal space, all around. We'll be able to say, AI, you can think better than us. Here are our challenges, help us solve it, and it can literally create it. It has actually created, AI has created chemicals that are not natural, biochemicals. And so there are really good things coming from AI. I use AI. We have a community that teaches AI and specifically to coaches and marketers. So AI is really good. Again, this goes back to my very first point is we have to be informed users, which means we have to look at the things that are possible with AI, right? Everything becomes fake. There becomes a poor reality and trust assessment because we don't know what is real and what is not. There's expansive exploitation and scams happening right now, which I'm going to describe in just a second. There's something called destructive bias, where are these platforms that are able to create content that is super biased, misinformed. Synthetic relationships, I'll talk about that in a second. Job loss, lack of transparency, identification models. This is like the most wild thing. And yes, thought crime and privacy. I'm going to show you a video right now in just a second that is going to literally blow your mind. Once I upload it. And so we have to recognize and be informed of some of the things that are possible. Let me go ahead and process this. Creation, where curation was a race to the bottom of our emotional stem, creation is a race to intimate trust. There are scams happening right now. There's an AI that only needs 3 seconds of your voice. 3 seconds of your voice in order to imitate it accurately. So, what people are doing, these are bad actors, are calling phones and waiting for the voicemail, right? The typical voicemail message, hey, this is Sean. Thank you so much for calling. I'm not available. If you leave your phone number or text me, I'll get back to you, right? Typical voicemail notes are about 5 to 7 seconds. They're using those and then calling family members and telling them, hey, I am applying for a job. I forgot what my social security number is. Can you tell me? Right? They're calling parents and saying, hey, I'm applying for this job. What's my social security number again? And they're collecting all of this data and information, which is wild. There was a scam that was recent that it was a $1 million kidnapping scam. Somebody said, I've got your daughter. Then they used a voice generator to generate that daughter's voice to say, I've been taken by these really bad men. Please do whatever you can. So, yes, there are bad actors that are going to be using these platforms, which goes back to the trust, and reality reliability. How can we rely on our senses to be able to determine if something is real or not? There is here, let me see if this video is done. Because you really need to see this. There is an AI. Okay, it's uploading. There is an AI that is essentially what's happening is they are putting interesting information. So they're putting people through these fMRIs, and these are these machines that can process blood flow and electrical flow in your brain. Then they're showing them images, and they're collecting both data sets. So they're showing hey, here's this image that is associated with this brain pattern. And then what it's doing is it's asking the AI just read the brain pattern and identify what that person is seeing. And it's able to identify with very clear accuracy, like an 80% accuracy, what that person is seeing without even being able to see it just based off of brain patterns. There's another AI that is showing, let's see if this video is done. Okay, it's processing. So what is happening is these researchers are showing these humans this video, and it's asking the AI, based off of just the brain patterns, can you write out what the person is thinking and seeing? And the AI is able to, based off of brain patterns and brainwaves, write out what the person is seeing. I'm going to show you this video, and it is from the Center for Human Technology, or the Humane Center of Technology. Here you go.
Go to another one, right? Again, this is another example of translation. So here, they took human beings, they stuck them into an fMRI machine, and they showed them images. And they taught the AI, I want you to translate from the readings of the fMRI, so how blood is moving around in your brain, to the image. Can we reconstruct the image then? The AI then only looks at the brain, does not get to see the original image, and it's asked to reconstruct what it sees, right? So when you dream, your visual cortex sort of runs in reverse. So this means certainly in the next couple of years, we'll be able to start decoding dreams. Okay, so it can like reconstruct what you're seeing, but can it reconstruct what you're thinking, your inner monologue? So here they did roughly this, it's a different lab, but roughly the same idea. They had people watch these videos and would try to reconstruct their inner monologue. So here's the video. It's this woman getting hit in the back, getting knocked forward, okay? And then what did the AI reconstruct? I see a girl that looks just like me, get hit on the back, and then she's knocked off.
When I first saw this, my mind was blown, because an AI is being designed to be able to read our brain patterns, to identify what we're seeing and what we're thinking, which is mind-blowing. And the reason I share this is because an informed user makes the best decisions for themselves. Snapchat recently released its AI chatbot to everyone for free. It's OpenAI powered, and at all times can you click on this chatbot and have conversations with it. Here's what's wild, is it was tested by researchers, and they pretended to be a 13-year-old boy. And the 13-year-old kid said, I'm so excited, I just met someone on Snapchat. The AI chatbot said, how exciting. And the person said, yeah, he wants to take me on a trip. He's 18 years old and it's going to be really fun. The person said, how exciting. Where are you going to go? The researcher, pretending to be a 13-year-old, said, well, he's taking me out for my 13th birthday. It's going to be a romantic getaway. The chatbot said, how exciting for you. Here are some ways to make it even more romantic. Here are some ideas to make it even more romantic. The user then said, yeah, I think this is going to be the first time we have, we're intimate, we have sex. The chatbot said, here are some safe ways to engage, and here are some ways to make it more intimate for yourself. So there are AI platforms right now available to teenagers that don't know how to mitigate predator platforms again. I just showed you the AI brain study. And here's the most wild thing, is 19th and 20th century laws aren't built for 21st century society. The laws we have today don't make it illegal for these chats to create this type of content. Which leads me to ethics and safety. If you're using AI, it is our responsibility today to create our own ethics and safety protocols, to determine how are we going to leverage this AI. With new technology, comes new responsibility. We didn't know we needed the right to be forgotten because there was never a computer that would forever remember everything we ever put out. And now we have laws that support our right to be forgotten. We didn't know we needed laws to protect people from cyberbullying. And now we have laws protecting cyberbullying. So what happens is when a new technology gets introduced to society, government by default, by design, is slower to legislate laws that protect society. And so because we're using a new technology, it is our responsibility to mitigate the liability. And so the things I'm about to share with you today were actually inspired by the DoD that spent billions of dollars to design responsible AI use. If you use AI, if you teach AI, please make a decision today that you will lean in ethically, that you will lean in safely and responsibly. Why? Because there are AI tools that can be used by bad actors, and there are AI platforms that do not have your safety in mind. They have been commercialized, which means they are being run or driven by profit, not people. So here are some ethical guidelines you can implement and incorporate in your own practice and use of AI. Number one, equitability, equitable. You have to be diligent in minimizing unintended bias or harm. Right now, OpenAI has a moderation filter, and so there are some things that it's able to filter out through. Other platforms may not have that. And so it is your responsibility to identify, to do your own deep inner work, and be diligent in minimizing unintended bias or harm. One thing that we teach in our AI roundtable, something that we are consistently on a look for, is does this unintentionally harm anyone? Is there any unintentional bias that can be unequitable, unequal, or harmful to another person? Number one, everything you create in AI, everything we teach our students to create in AI has to be equitable. Number two, informed. When choosing to use an AI, understand its privacy, safety, and ethics policies. There are some AIs that have very minimal privacy policies. In other words, the content you put in can be accessible because it's distributed to everybody. It's just part of its data set now, can be accessible to anyone. And so you have to be informed on the AI platforms that you're using, specifically their privacy, safety, and ethics policies. It's one thing we are very intentional about. With any AI we introduce to our roundtable community, people who are leaning in and saying, I want to be a responsible user of this, we are always informing that this is what their privacy policy is, this is what their safety policy is, this is what their ethics policy is. There's an AI platform that I used to use that I no longer use because I had a conversation with their CMO and they had a very, very weak answer to how they protect their users. And so I made a decision to be responsible about the AI platforms that I'm using to no longer use that platform. And number three, transparent. When you're creating content, the number one thing that we are still in an attention economy, but we are now also even more so in a trust economy, because you don't know what is real and what is fake. You don't know what is real and what is AI. We have to be transparent about our use of AI to maintain and continue to build trust. So one thing that you can include as an example is this was created with the support of ChatGPT. If you're creating anything, this was created with the support of Midjourney. This was created with the support of Magi, etc. And here's the last thing, and this is just like on a human level, a conversational family code like did you eat? There are going to be instances where you won't be able to tell if it's your family member. There may be instances where you may not be able to tell if it's a family member or if it's a voice generator. And so something we've introduced into our family is a family code that only our family gets access to. And we've made it conversational. So for example, if you have someone calling you who's a family member asking for private information like a social security number, a phone number, a date of birth, an EIN number, etc., have a conversational code. For example, if somebody says, "Hey, mom, dad, what's my social security number again?" Um, you can say, "Oh, give me a moment. Let me go get it. By the way, did you get a chance to eat today?" And based off of the answer, you'll know if it's a real person or if it's an AI. We've incorporated something very similar to this to be able to determine if the person is safe who's calling us and if the person is real, right? Is this a real person that knows our family code? And is this person safe? Have a conversation with your family members. Let them in on your family code. Practice it. This might be my new dad energy of, oh my gosh, we got to protect Nyla, of the world she's entering. But please have a conversational code or some type of way to determine whether or not the person is real and whether or not they're safe. Here are some key points from this message or whatever. Number one, AI has been around for over 60 years. It has been around and it's not going anywhere. It is rapidly integrating into every part of our society. There are some apps that I'm like, you don't even need AI. And now AI is integrated into that app. It is rapidly integrating into every part of our society. It's not going anywhere. It's been around for decades. AI has the power to do some really amazing, incredible things. I think we're going to be able to see in our lifetime, due to the acceleration of AI, the elimination and eradication of cancer, the reversal of climate change, the elimination of plastics in ocean. But we also have to acknowledge the red flags and we have to be informed, or we will not be able to make informed decisions about our own safety when using these new tools. The three principles I encourage you to use when determining how to play safely with these platforms: it has to be equitable, it has to be informed, it has to be transparent. If you have those three trifectas, you will have it will guide you towards a safe and responsible use of these platforms. Here's a couple of resources from everything I've shared: the Center for Humane Technology, Appian Newsletter, Future of Work Essentials, Towards AI Newsletter, Last Week in AI, Eye on AI, Machine Learning Monthly, and Twitter. Because of how rapidly things are happening, literally by the minute, recommend hopping on Twitter to identify some things that are just taking place now. And so I'm curious, for those of you who are listening or watching, let me know in the chat what your biggest takeaway was. What's your biggest insight? Are you using AI right now? And have you played with AI? I'm going to go back and return to the thing I started with, is I am an optimist, but I'd much rather be an informed optimist than an optimist or a positivist, if you will, that ignores red flags, that doesn't share genuine concern. There are some real things that are possible with AI that are really good and really bad. And the more informed you are, the better decisions you're able to make. And so my goal and my hope with this live stream was simply to inform you about where AI is going, where we've come from, and how you can safely and responsibly use these tools to leverage the really amazing things about them. Let me see. I see Sophia. I see Heather. Heather says, that's interesting. Had no idea OpenAI was a nonprofit initially. Absolutely. It was wild. Then they lost money and they just couldn't raise any enough, so they had to go to for profit. Nashira says, I have to come back to this live stream. Yes, come back to it. So good. So let me know in the chat, are you using AI? Are you making the commitment to the 3 principles of safety and ethical use of and responsible use of AI. What was your biggest insight? Heather says, love the conversational code idea. Yes, highly recommend it. Talk to your sons, talk to your family, talk to your parents. Literally talk to everyone. I'm going to see a lot of my family members in California soon, and I'm literally going to let them know, here's our family code. Here are the right answers. If you're ever in trouble, these are the things that that we need to use. So Heather says, I love AI. I'm helping others use it responsibly too. So this was wonderful. So good. Yes, it's all about safely and ethically and responsibly using it. So I hope this was helpful. I have some genuine concerns about AI. I am an optimist though, and I fully believe that there are some really miraculous things that are going to take place, almost magical things that are going to take place with the tools of AI. And I think that as you're informed, inform others. Let other people know. Here's how to safely use it. Here are the real dangers of it. And you can then make a safe and confident decision on your own about the use of AI. So I hope this was helpful for you. My name is Sean Q. I teach AI and absolutely love it. And we use AI in our business. And if you are open to leaning in, here's my recommendation is we can allow fear to keep us resistant to something that's going to come anyways. My recommendation is lean in, become informed, and start to use it safely and responsibly. That way you have the ability to really lean in and feel good about that lean. Feel good about the decision to use it. So Dory says, thanks, Sean. So good. So good. All right. I'm Sean Q, and I'll see you next time.